welcome to the Good Book Life. I'm Donna Scott, and I am joined by some more fabulous guests this week for another bookish chat. And this week, the topic is protecting pride, as we react to recent news about certain reform councils coming down on libraries and asking them to remove Pride and LGBTQ plus displays in libraries. We're joined once again by Peter Ray Allison, Journalist Supreme. Peter, introduce yourself, please.
Hello, hi, I am Peter Ray Allison, freelance journalist, writer, author, and most recently co-founder of the collaborative storytelling events provider, Mythic Echoes.
Hi, I'm Melanie Bell. I'm a Canadian author based in Brighton in the UK now, and I am an editor as well as a writer. I have 4 books out in different genres. I'm queer myself and write a lot of queer content.
Hi, I'm Paul Giffney. I'm a published poet who has just released his 4th book, and I'm currently doing a lot of workshops for schools and young people to help encourage the writing.
I'm also joined by Laura Jane Round. Laura, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm a writer who's been published by the Slab Press previously. I'm living in the West Midlands and I'm proudly bisexual.
Great. We're also from the same town. Did you know that?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
We are. That was quite a shock when I figured that out. Small world.
So there's one thing I know about your town, because I keep up with local news, is that you've got a reform council as well as us in Northampton.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that has been worrying me, because the topic that we're discussing today is the Reform Council in Staffordshire, who were the first of the councils to do this particular move, this particular heinous move of banning pride displays and LGBT displays from public libraries. Now, the person who has talked about this in the news is a person called Martin Murray, who is a reform councillor from Stafford, and he has previously said that he would like a war on woke. Since they came into power in May 2025, they did a public consultation of the libraries. They said there hadn't been a full consultation since 2018. I know what kind of consultation that was. That was during the credit crunch, and then there was a kind of libraries consultation that I was up against because of all of the targeting of libraries for council cuts. So one of these things that public consultations often find is the desire not to touch libraries, but that doesn't matter, because this is what the public consultation has ended up in. They've come up with a doctrine, a framework for a strategy for the library, and as part of that strategy they have decided they want to focus on the library's core responsibilities, which they are then reinterpreting, because it sounds so benign, but they're reinterpreting it as no pride displays in libraries, which is I will just show you, if you would interested in learning this, there's articles all about this in the Express and Star. So this is the Express and Star online, and here is the article that I looked at. Reform-led councillor said that there was a decision to review and refocus the use of library display space made by the Cabinet Member for Communities and Culture, and that is another person that is let me see, where is she? Her name's Hayley. She's a councillor. Okay, so I've gathered you all to discuss this. So what do we take about this, the core issue? So what do we understand about these policies that certain reform councillors are bringing in under the edicts of strategy and optimisation of library resources?
I'm looking at the legislation and of the Libraries and Museums Act 1964 right now. And in providing this service, councils must, amongst other things, encourage both adults and children to make full use of the library service and lend books and other printed material free of charge for those who live, work or study in the area. Fine, it's doing what a library should be. But within that, it also says to provide a comprehensive and efficient library service for all persons, for all those who live, work or study in the area. Now, as soon as you remove any presentation from any display that is targeting, supporting, or informing about any people. You are causing a discrimination there. Excuse me. And the main issue I have is, as a bisexual guy, growing up in Section 28, where the law was you couldn't even talk about homosexuality. Libraries weren't even allowed to say we had books on it. Teachers could not talk about it. I had no idea bisexuality existed. It wasn't until I got to college that I understood that such a sexuality existed, let alone that it was okay, let alone that I could be supported. My library in my hometown of North Devon at the time was my second home. And it provided many people across the county at the time a refuge. And I think libraries do that now. It's one of the few third spaces we have that people don't have to spend money in. You know, you can go there, be accepted for who you are, and live. You know, they support you. To then deny any opportunity for information to be displayed to help that, especially during Pride Month, or especially during a History Month, or especially during anything that is designed to inform, is, in my eyes, criminal.
There's also the aspect that if you do not present reliable information in a way that can be accessed by everybody, people that are exploring themselves, learning about themselves, realizing that they're not heteronormative, will start looking elsewhere for information that is not as constructive or supportive or consensual. And that is going to cause more issues down the line. Essentially, it's reform are all about nostalgia, going back to how Britain was. And I remember Britain in the 70s, it was a hellhole. Yeah. So
the 70s, when I was born, we didn't even have equal pay.
Yeah.
And this is something you think, okay, when the Equal Pay Act came in, that meant women would start getting paid equally straight away. Well, no, because I was fighting that in 2011, and you know, so, and that somebody else who was a bloke was being paid more than me because the boss said he was a family man. So I know, totally against the law. So we sorted it out.
I was just going to say that this fight is our fight in terms of it's all connected. This equal pay, these rights for the LGBT community, and if we don't have this access to the historical record of this pushback, which you will find in libraries and which I found in college, you know, British Queer History was this collection of essays that I coveted it. I read it over and over again from the library. They want to erase that, just like with Section 28. So we kind of don't have our fight left in this. We don't see what came before us and how they're all connected. You know, I see this rolling back of things like Pride as all connected in terms of a collective struggle. And we forget how connected we really are by that struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, Laura. I think it's in terms of any protected characteristic that we can see in the Equality Act. The moment we've definitely got a focus, because I think hot topics, they're picking the hot topic of the moment, but I see others creeping in. I see women's rights being stripped back. I see disability, people with disabilities being targeted. I see that already from these councils. We've had to have fights in Northamptonshire to get free blue badge parking back because they took that away, and it was unconstitutional, and they were rightly told off. But this is the kind of thing, we're having people who are not necessarily used to the structures of council or decision making interfering beyond their arm's length reach of libraries and getting involved with libraries when they shouldn't be. Melanie, what's your take on this?
I think that libraries have a responsibility and should also have a freedom to curate information and reliable information. And there's so much that's being swept under the rug or minimized while people need access to it. I remember being in university and there being something called the Sexuality Center that I would go to access resources that I had not accessed in as a teenager growing up in a small town in Canada or known existed. And that was really important for me to see that type of representation and to have access to broader library collections. And when I was a bit older, I started writing for a website called Autostraddle. I did a book column called Hidden Gems of Queer Lit, where I looked at both new books that were coming out and also some historical collections that hadn't gotten a lot of mainstream attention because there's such a rich history of material. And if we don't know what's there, then we might not have the chance to read a story that reflects our own story and to know ourselves better.
Why does representation matter in libraries?
I would say represented matters because you need to give a full representation of what the United Kingdom is. We are, as much as Reform may protest, a multicultural society. Different people, different nations under one flag. That flag is the Union Jack, the Union flag, whatever you wish to call it. And you have to
Union flag,
accept
unless we're at sea.
exactly. If you look back in history, I cover a fair bit of tech policy, including data protection. And the whole attack on LGBT recently can be traced back to a couple of years ago when DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, started targeting diversity, equality, and integration, basically claiming it was inefficient and that we should lose all the equality and diversity programs. And they also lifted the sanctions against targeting people for their gender identity or sexuality, which frankly, they can now target people for surveillance based on if you're gay. And if that doesn't scare you, I don't know what does, because it's just one step after another.
Yeah, I mean, because like the framework for libraries was only published last year, and it mentions diversity a number of times in there, and it seems to me that it's diversity itself that is being attacked or is being removed from the Staffordshire document. And of course, they're not the only ones. We've recently had Warwickshire County Council and Kent County Council come up with similar proposals for removing representation in their libraries. So there is a creep here. So those of us with reform councils in our towns, Laura, me, Paul, yeah, you as well, Peter. Oh.
Yeah, up in the area we've got reform councillors.
Oh, good grief.
I wanted to say about Staffordshire, the Staffordshire Poet Laureate herself has spoken out against this removal of LGBT material in libraries. So it's connected to us as writers in that the term woke, I mean, it comes from, to be awakened, and it shows how these reform councillors see knowledge as very dangerous. And I think that makes our role as writers even more prescient to show the fullness of life as somebody part of the LGBT community. And, the fact that they find it as dangerous as back when we had Section 28, ourselves living authentically and writing about it and writing about our history is still very dangerous to them. And that's what I can't reconcile with, because it's only ever improved my life to see like the full picture of what it means to be an LGBT person. And I can't imagine it would be that harmful to somebody who was straight and cis to see that, because it shows you different ways of being beyond just your sexuality and gender.
Yeah. You know what, it was really telling as well. A lot of the comments that I have seen online of people complaining about, well, actually endorsing the reform move, are saying that children should be protected when they walk into the library from stuff from somebody trying to influence them. This is not at all what libraries do, or what this is about. This is about removing often information and also books that happen to be by queer authors as well. And it's like, as well, what would be the thing? What would be the issue? What would be the issue? Why are they so afraid of? And you can just tell that those are the people who just don't go in libraries themselves. They don't go near books. Paul, what do you think?
I hate to be, and I'm really not sticking up for reform in any way, but they're only removing the displays. The books are still going to be available, is the argument against the fact that, and that's the slippery slope. And it absolutely is, the books are still available, but they won't be available to children. They won't be available to young people. They won't be available unless an adult is with them. Well, that's all
so
well
we've
and
already
good.
got 2 schools who've their libraries have removed books in the UK in a US style, US style. Melanie.
Yes, I was going to mention that it's part of an international trend with the US and even somewhere like Canada. There are places where I'm seeing book bans, and there were events such as Drag Queen Story Hour that were getting canceled like quite a while ago, and it was drag queens coming into libraries, and it's just a bit of fun for children, really, and a way to connect with different communities. And so I see books getting taken off the shelves in parts of the world, and here, if it's the displays that are getting hidden, as you said, it's absolutely a slippery slope. And the displays, if we're going to find the books, we need to know that they're there.
Yes. Laura.
When we were talking about protecting children, I was that queer child. I come from a loving family of heterosexual parents. I come from that. I'm the youngest. I was, raised right. I'm still queer, and it's.
And look at all those fairy tales we're exposed to, with Cinderella kissing the prince. I mean, do they need to actually do the kissing? What's that? Sleeping Beauty, that's non-consensual. What are you about? So, like, as children, we are exposed to all kinds of relationships and stories that, as we're growing up, that we learn about them, and we were told that these are fine for us to be exposed to, without it, being what these people are claiming it to be, as tall damaging. We're not damaged by Snow White. I don't know. Snow White's in my head a lot because my friend George is playing in Panto again this year. So. Again, Panto. We love Panto. What is wrong with drag? What is wrong with drag when we all take our kids to Panto?
It's just double standard. It's a simple double standards.
But they really love Mrs. Brown's Boys as well. Okay, I shouldn't have invoked Mrs. Brown's Boys. I would like to talk about the journalism. So I've shared with you a number of different local newspaper articles about these stories. What do you think the journalists should do in reporting these stories? Do you think they're doing a good job of holding the councils to account? I mean, we're looking at you, Cron. Paul, you're shaking your head.
Absolutely not. I mean, most media now online is just looking for the immediate clickbait. It's the quick get people to the comments, enrage them, and then even if it's not accurate or correct, it doesn't matter. We've sold the advert for the day. How often are reform on TV compared to any other political party in terms of balanced news, in terms of any information? We forget that Nigel Farage isn't a political person. He's a business person. The political party is actually a company. And we have lots of issues regarding all of the way he presents himself, with how reform people present themselves, and the fact that the media are basically just ladling it out without any comparison, without any contrast, means that this message becomes louder, and that's dangerous.
Yeah, it's like the world's most successful grift, I think. Peter, as a journalist, what do you think?
Right, there is tiers of journalism, and I don't mean that nastily. It's just the way the article is presented. There is some journalism which is done to basically, as you say, the clickbait, and then there's also other journalism, like more. Again, I hesitate to use the word because it sounds and me being insulting, but more professional journalism, more kind of business to business journalism, which is intended to be impartial. It kind of presents the facts and leaves the reader to draw their own conclusions. A couple of times I have been told by editors, don't be judgmental, be apolitical, just report the facts. So usually what I do is I write out 3,000 words and then cut out all the swearing.
Laura?
In terms of the journalism, it doesn't take long for them to stir anything up. All they need to do is innocently drop that particular article on the right page in the right places, just to stir something up. And for me, it's the unchecked comment sections are so vile. It's and you get to see what local people really think and how much they're supporting it, and it's so demoralizing. And it's demoralizing for me as a LGBT adult. I can't imagine what kids going online and seeing what people think of them is gonna do to their self-esteem. It's in these local groups, in some of these Sedgley groups, Dudley groups, Staffordshire groups, all somebody needs to do is just post a very small article that doesn't really say all that much, and they just fill it in for them. They don't even have to do much. The outrage machine is already in full effect, and people just like to whip themselves up behind the keyboard. And I do think it does translate into real life.
Yeah.
It's just very concerning.
And also because the newspaper companies have such terrible websites that are loaded with such a lot of heavy advertising pop-ups, people don't actually want to click and read the actual article, so that social media front is doing all the heavy work of engagement and raising attention for them that way, which is going to please those advertisers.
I would like to add that there are some media companies out there that promote themselves as a news organization, but are a private business and not a news organization. I'm, of course, talking about GB News, that are running repeatedly at a loss and are funded by certain Russian individuals. Basically,
there's a lot that's wrong with GB News. And the fact that they don't call themselves a news channel. They say we're not a news channel, but they're there. And the news channels on the channels.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, and so they get around a lot of the oversight, a lot of the Ofcom rules, but it's like, well, we're not a news organization, we are a media company. But when they are promoting themselves with aesthetically and effectively as a news organization, but they're not being held to account, and they are one of the largest vectors of reform and the anti-woke agenda.
Yeah. So if we come back to libraries, what can we do as library users? What is it that we can do? What can we do as advocates for LGBT rights? What do you think we should be doing now?
Be loud and proud.
Loud and proud.
Honestly, no. I mean, the more someone tells me not to do something, the more I'm going to do it. You go out there, ignore the haters, and just be yourself, and unashamedly and proudly, because there's no reason to be scared. And just keep being there and just being there and representing it. And that be that either a user or a writer. I recently wrote a short story, vampire short story, where I deliberately made all my characters agendered. All the principal characters had no gender. I left it up to the reader to interpret the gender for themselves.
Mhm.
Because it was going to annoy reform.
Okay. Melanie.
So I think that I like that answer of being loud and proud, and I think we can also make requests of our libraries, tell them what books we want to see, encourage queer events. If we're an author, we can organize our own events. We can also help promote and distribute other people's books and queer books and elevate queer voices. And there is a really cool initiative that's coming around for Pride this year called the Aesop Queer Library that was just in London and is coming down to Brighton at the end of this month and early August that gives away free queer books. So initiatives like that are both within and outside the library, just creating this reading community and drawing attention to these voices that people need to hear.
Yes, thank you. Laura.
To follow on from Peter's point, in that, unfortunately, sometimes we are going to have to put ourselves in the line of fire. I have been featured as a local LGBT creative, and the hate I got online was quite vile. I keep saying vile, but it was. But I want to be that out and proud person that I would have liked to see as a kid in my community, because despite everybody saying that, it might be a bit backwards where I come from, or we're not as evolved, we are, and we have that potential to be. And the more we're visible with it and we say authentically, I come from here and this is my life, it can encourage other people to live openly too. I don't think I'm some great crusader for the underprivileged, but simply just being still alive and myself as a queer disabled person, because a lot of these that people forget that they overlap, these communities, and writing about that and going into libraries and showing that it's not a frightening thing or something that's just for people in London or in a really liberal space, that we exist everywhere and have always existed, I think is really important. Who nobody told me about James Whale, director of Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, who came from Dudley, who has his own statue.
Gods and Monsters. Yeah.
And was gay. Nobody told me about that. It would have made me feel a lot less alone growing up. So, creative stuff like film, media, books, they're so important. And I just think it's nice to just live your life through your writing and your actions and hope it makes a difference, I guess.
I studied James Whale at university as part of my modern Gothic. Yeah.
It's great.
Cool.
That's him. It was one of the first things I got published. I did it in the voice of James Whale, my own little interpretation.
That's fantastic.
Cool.
I love James Whale. The film with Ian McKellen and Brendan Fraser is so powerful, so moving, and the interspersed aspects with that. But something you said, Laura, about how if we can put ourselves in the line of fire, there's only so much hate in the world. And if that hate comes to us and we are adults and we can shoulder it, we can take it, we can even turn it creatively and turn it back and give love back out, then if that hate's coming towards us, it's not going to a young person. It's not going to someone who might be more vulnerable on that day. And, it hurts us. Obviously it does. Anyone who is targeted by anything hatred, it's a horrible thing. But I've had so much discussions in regards to my poetry. Some of it is based on homosexual, some of it's based on heterosexual relationships. But like Peter Allison's characters, I try and make it as gender neutral as possible, unless it's specifically challenging an idea. Young people need to see that voice being represented, to hear themselves in any sort of media. And that's why, you know, Donna and I have both been bards. And to give a voice to a community in any format, it's an honor, it's a privilege. And a library can represent those voices. So to take away that display of that voice is horrible. But to be able to be in that library, to be in that public space and go, yes, I am here. Yes, I am giving the poetry. Oh, you don't like it? Okay, well, I'm not even going to entertain why not. That's your opinion, and that's fine. But your opinion doesn't invalidate me. I exist.
Yes, and I will say as well as an ally, but also as a libraries campaigner, it's one of those things that's very important to do. If you see a threat, double down on your usage of the place that is threatened. So the moment we're looking at libraries, when we look at bookshops, if the bookshops are also threatened, because there are a lot of bookshops out there that are specialist queer bookshops as well, give them your love, give them your support. But libraries are constantly threatened. They are the thing that gets threatened as soon as councils need to make a cut somewhere. There's always the libraries at the first thing that are looked at, because people think, oh, it's just books, so it's not important. It's so important. A lot of us wouldn't be where we were today or have the success that we were if it weren't for libraries. So it's a last but democratic space. It's got great facilities that everybody can use. It's a safe space. We talk about it being a safe space as well for people to go, for young people to go. If they want quiet space to do a bit of homework and they can't get that at home, a library can offer that to them. And often as well, they can also get access to technology that they might not be able to have at home too. And it's a absolute wealth of information. And as an entrepreneur, I go to all the BIPC events as well. So I'm just trying to get as much as I can out of the library. And I'm always going to be there for it. So I'll always be shouting for libraries. Yeah, so we're coming to the end of our discussion now. So I would like to know what are your final thoughts on the topic, and we'll wrap that up, and then I'll ask you to share what you've got going on in your own creative lives right now. Okay, so Peter.
Okay, basically, last final thought is keep being you. Keeping you, keep accessing the information. By accessing the information, that access will be logged. That log will be recorded. And the more it's recorded, the more evidence libraries have to prove we need this information to still remain present and available and visible. Because when they can prove that empirical information, that this information is being used for research for whatever reasons, then they can push back and say, no, we need it. You can tell us to take it down, but we can say, no, listen, this information is needed, and you cannot tell us to move it if it's still being required. And keep using it, keep pushing it. And also start reading queer authors, because one, there's some really good authors out there, and two, that will again empirically recorded, proving that people are looking for information or books by queer authors, however they may be. So yeah, and if anyone's got a problem, that's their problem, not yours.
Okay, great, thanks. Talking about other authors to read, I've got a real recommendation for people. It's a YA book I've just read by William Hussey called The Outrage. It's a near future dystopia where reform-like party has basically shut down a lot of our rights, and it's a coming of age book about a young lad who is growing up in that world, and he discovers a library full of banned films.
Ooh.
So it's really good. So banned films like Wizard of Oz and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Love, Simon. Laura.
I guess I'd say don't take for granted that libraries are always going to be there. We've seen in times of conflict across the world, they're not treated as priority sometimes, and then we end up losing. so much value. Keep making sure it's a safe space. Keep reading queer authors, and find your local queer community. There's a huge local LGBT writing community in Dudley alone, and we try to support and lift each other up. They're just some of the most wonderful people you'll ever meet. And keep being proud of, you know, your local area while also being proud of yourself. The fact that I'm queer and a yam yam, you know, from the Black Country, they can coexist, and they do quite beautifully. Actually, it's a beautiful thing. And I also just wanted to shout out quickly, read the poetry of Natalie Eva, my friend who passed away a few years ago, who is a trans woman author from Ireland who lived beautifully and fearlessly in Liverpool. You know, queer stories matter, and they matter a lot to me, certainly.
Thank you. Great. Paul.
So Walter Cronkite, the American journalist, whatever the cost of our libraries, the price is cheap compared to that of an ignorant nation. We need our libraries. We need everyone to be safe in a library. We need libraries to have all of the information. As soon as we censor any information, that's when our society stops thinking freely. You know, Einstein, not a great person in himself, but, you know, definitely had knowledge. And he said the only thing you need to know is the location of your library.
Great, thanks. Melanie.
Censorship is worth fighting against, and libraries are worth fighting for as an analog space where we can find information as we see the internet changing, and a place where we can go read and find books becomes all the more important. And queer communities, I see a lot of queer spaces closing around me, so these communities are worth supporting as well, whether you're part of them or whether you're an ally. You can reach out and you can be part of the fight too, because it's worth fighting for. And in terms of book recommendations, I read a lovely fantasy recently called Idlefire by Grace Curtis, and it's a sapphic road trip set in a fantasy world, so well worth reading.
Well, that sounds great. Thanks. Okay. Now, do we have anything that we would like to promote? Peter, you've just finished Hot Goth Summer. What's going on with you?
Okay, I just finished Hot Goth Summer, where I ran Vampire Games Nights, so vampire-themed role-playing games each night, and I am in what's known as exhausted. But my next event coming up will be the Vampire Live Roleplay. As night falls, the Crimson Ball. It's a vampire masquerade. It's a vampire masquerade ball, and I am one of the co-founders of Mythic Echoes. And first things we did, we set out a rules of behaviour and codes of conduct. And top of the list is no discrimination. So everyone is welcome. LGBTQIA, disabled, abled, what have you. You're all welcome. If anyone gives you stick, let me know, and they're ejected. And we've already banned one person from events because they're being skeevy. And it's just like, I'm sorry, we are here to build. We're not here to make money. We're here to build communities and make everyone welcome. And if you're going to start being an idiot, you're not welcome.
It's a vampire, so it's not giving stick, it's giving steak.
Exactly, giving steaks.
Laura.
Right now, I have a few irons in the fire, but the thing, I'm just going to be quite open and honest. I'm querying currently for my first full poetry collection. Hopefully I can get it off the ground soon. It's in the pipeline. It's called These Are My MS Poems. It's kind of a loving send up of when a poet has a big event in their life, like a disabling event, they have to do a collection about it. So it's got these are my MS poems. This is my waiting room poem. This is my appointment poem. And you see the joke, but it is a loving send up because I love those kinds of collections so much. But apart from that, you will just see me in the local area. I'm writing a play, and it should be out next year, my one-woman show. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And everyone keep reading horror.
Awesome. Yep. And Laura Jane Rand has a story in Hiding Under the Leaves, published by the Slab Press. Available now. Paul.
I've just released my fourth book, If Silence is Golden. It's my fourth book of a collection which take a journey through basically people's lives in a sort of a color-based theme. So Take It As Red is all about anger and the red tape of our society, but also painting the town red. You then have When Amber Is Seen, which is all about pausing and the autumnal stages of life. We then have in sequence the last book I've just released, If Silence Is Golden, and then the latest in the sequence is Let Memory Be Green. And all four are available on my website, purplepenpoet.uk.
Thank you. Melanie.
So my queerest book is this one here. It's called Chasing Harmony, and it's a bisexual coming-of-age story set in rural Prince Edward Island, where I grew up, and it's on a millennial timeline. So if you're curious about what it's like to grow up in Canada, this is a good book about that. And I was very fortunate to have it appear on a Pride Month reading list last year. And a couple of my other books have queer content as well. My short story collection, Dream Signs, has a bunch of different stories. Some of them are more literary, some of them are more genre. There is one set in a world where there are 3 genders. There are 3 of the stories are set in that world. And most recently, I have a poetry collection out called The Heart Decided to Move. And my mother was asking, is there anything gay in this book? So I went through and put little bookmarks in the gay poems. It's mostly about me moving to the UK, but there is some queer content in those too as well.
Great, thank you. So it just leaves me to say thank you to all of my guests, Peter Ray Allison, Laura Jane Rand, Paul Giffney and Melanie Bell. And this has been The Good Book Life. And I've been Donna Scott, and I will be soon again, I think. Okay, see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.